Hello, everyone. My name's Emily Olson. I'm with Moby Health News. Today, we're here with Matthew Stoudt. He's the co-founder and CEO of AppliedVR, which makes virtual reality therapeutics. Thank you so much for joining us on HIMSS TV today.
Great to be here, Emily. Thanks for having us.
So in November, AppliedVR received FDA De Novo clearance for your EaseVRx system to treat chronic lower back pain. Can you tell us a little bit about EaseVRx and how it works?
Yeah, happy to. So we were obviously thrilled to be able to get FDA approval for our Class 2 De Novo product here. And the product itself, we really were focusing on how do we help the millions of patients that are suffering from chronic pain, in this case, chronic low back pain, where they can self-administer something from the home, which I think as you look in healthcare more broadly, there is this trend of moving healthcare into the home as much as we possibly can, or at least meeting the patients where they are. And so EaseRx is our first effort in really trying to bring that healthcare into the home. It's a 8-week program that each week goes through different modules that really helps teach you how to better control and modulate your pain. So it teaches you regulation skills, it teaches you mindfulness skills, it leverages a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. And so it's a combination therapy that tries to address the chronic pain for the patients. Again, it's self-administered, and the idea here is that after the 8 weeks, you're able to start to better modulate your pain on a day-to-day basis. Because the idea here is it's not you're necessarily going to solve pain. That's not the goal. The goal is how do you help someone have a better quality of life? How do you help them reduce the level of other procedures that they might need to have, or how do you help them push off the types of procedures that someone who is in chronic pain tends to follow that journey of getting, they get their NSAIDs and they get their opioids and they get their injections, then the implants, and then the surgery. And that's a cycle we're trying to break.
Why is virtual reality a useful way to treat chronic pain?
So it's interesting. I think our understanding of chronic pain has really evolved for the better, most especially over the last couple of years here. And in fact, you're looking at the IASP has started to update their definition of what we define as chronic pain. Chronic pain, like most chronic disease conditions, is what we call a biopsychosocial condition. And that means that it's not just simply about the physiology of the pain, but it's also about the comorbidities of depression, anxiety, catastrophization, sleeplessness. And then that gets wound into the social side of things, the sense of isolation that patients have. And then it becomes this vicious cycle. And unfortunately, if you look basically ad infinitum, we've always tried to treat chronic pain focusing on that physical trauma, not worrying about the other components that are a true part of that equation. And so, again, the good thing is that we're recognizing that we need to take this biopsychosocial approach to it. The challenge that we have is that we are just not equipped from a supply perspective to be able to meet the needs of those, tens of millions of patients that are suffering. And so the example of this is if a chronic pain patient wanted to go see an integrated pain specialist, there's only one for every, depending upon your denominator, 10 to 30,000 sufferers that are out there. So we literally don't have the capacity to actually deliver on this. Mm-hmm. And so into that breach is where this idea of virtual reality, what we call immersive therapeutics, is uniquely equipped to be able to address this biopsychosocial problem with a biopsychosocial solution. And it's the idea that we can actually, it's the combination of immersion and interactivity that is able to actually interact with the brain, with the 5 areas of the brain that are associated with pain, as well as with learning, and we can interact with them instantaneously, simultaneously. And that means that we can ultimately lead to lasting neurobehavioral change. And that's evidenced by, after our pivotal trial, we ended up actually tracking our patients for 6 months post-intervention. And we even saw 6 months, and this is in peer review right now, it's going through, but we saw just phenomenal results 6 months after they had sent back the headsets. So demonstrating the fact that we really believe that we're creating that lasting neurobehavioral change.
What are your next steps for AppliedVR now that you have the De Novo for EaseVRx? Do you have other products in the pipeline? What are you thinking for next steps?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, I'll start with what our grand vision is. Immersive therapeutics is an entirely new category of therapeutics. And we're kind of at the forefront of this emerging therapeutic modality. But as opposed to the traditional class of digital therapeutics, where everyone has a cell phone, the infrastructure doesn't really exist to be able to deliver immersive therapeutics at scale. And so we are in the process of not only building the therapeutic interventions, but also we've got to build the infrastructure that's required to bring this next generation modality into the marketplace. And so what that means is it's everything from, how do we build the distribution platform, the actual technology platform, and then how do we get the headsets out there? How do we engage with the payers? And I think this is the biggest challenge that all digital therapeutics face, but is really, we want to go out there and we want to try to embrace the payers and be partners with them, both on the commercial and the public side, and build that body of evidence that's required to drive broad scale reimbursement from CMS and all the commercial and the self-insured employers. So it's the infrastructure. It's going to be doing the work necessary to get the coding in place, to get the coverage in place, to get the policies in place. And then we want to continue to expand. Our first label is around chronic low back pain, but that's just one area within the chronic pain space. And so we really want to expand that into other chronic disease or other chronic pain areas, including fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, endometriosis as an example, to where we ultimately get that broad-based label for chronic pain. And then from there, we're expanding into other areas like anxiety and depression. We have a novel partnership with National Cancer Institute that we're already doing some innovative work with today. And so, the idea here ultimately is that we're going to have a headset in every home in America and around the world, and that AppliedVR ideally is going to be that pharmacy, if you will, that's dispensing this next generation therapeutic. So that's our North Star, and getting this De Novo for chronic low back pain was the first big step toward achieving that North Star.
Gotcha. So for one of our last questions, shifting to like the general digital health space, what do you think were some of the big themes and trends from 2021?
So the trends for 2021 really are a follow-on, I think, from the trends of 2020 and the impact that COVID had on healthcare in America. I think about this from 4 different areas. 1 is going to be telehealth, 2 is home health, 3 is digital health, and then 4 is mental health. All of those were impacted in some way by COVID. And we all recognize that there was mental health crisis in America. We all recognize that telehealth made a heck of a lot of sense. The problem was that it's just healthcare is a Byzantine industry. And when something so large, to be able to move that, you need something cataclysmic like COVID to be able to drive it forward. And so if you look at the trends, what was getting funded, where a lot of the efforts were in 2021, it was all around those 4 areas: telehealth, digital health, mental health, and home health. And I think as you come into 2022, you just look at what's going on with Omicron right now and how the hospitals themselves are getting overwhelmed. I think you're going to see the continuation of that trend. There was some question about, well, is telehealth going to kind of revert back to where it was before? But I think, it goes to something I'd said earlier. I think we in the healthcare industry really need to think about how, rather than forcing the patients to come to the treatments, how do we actually bring healthcare to where the patients are, meet the patient where he or she is? And I fundamentally believe that that's going to be an ongoing trend here.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Matthew.
Pleasure to be here, Emily. Thanks a lot. Love the work that you guys do at HEMS.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for everyone who's watching, and keep tuned with us for HIMSS TV to hear more about what happened in 2021 and predictions for the upcoming year.